Hey, it's Aaron. Today I have a really interesting question from Steve. It relates to the plans to tear down the old American Motor Company office building and headquarters in Michigan. It's a controversial thing. There's people that are really unhappy about it, but it's going to happen. It's been sitting there dormant for a long, long, long time. So the question that Steve has, though, is what would AMC or the American Motor Company have had to have done differently for it to survive to the present day? It's a really good question. And it's not easy to answer. There's no like one thing you can point to, if they had just hired this guy instead of that guy, or if they had just decided to make this car instead of that one or something. That's not really that wouldn't really work. It's not how it boils down. The decline of AMC was very long and was tied to the financial and economic goings-on of the time. Changing economics, the downturn in the mid-70s meant that the competitive Japanese vehicles, which were much more fuel efficient and cheaper, were hitting the market and really just they were blowing big holes in the sales models of the American Big Three and all the American Michigan-based or Detroit-based is what we would call them now, but all the American automakers of that time. So in the 70s, they were just all these companies were being hit really hard. But AMC was probably one of the worst off because they weren't nearly as big as the other companies. They were a much smaller company. They had a limited lineup of vehicles, and they did not have the kind of financial muscle required to really go about doing heavy branding and to completely redesign a vehicle in a very short amount of time. They didn't have those resources, so they had to do something. The first signal of demise for AMC, it wasn't because of it, but the first signal that AMC was having serious issues was when they were bought out by Renault. Renault is a French automaker who had on and off tried to sell cars here with very little success. And it wasn't a bad thing they bought out AMC. AMC really needed that infusion, and it was good overall for the company. But it was the first big signal that AMC was not going to last, because most of the time when a company gets bought out by another company, that company eventually just gets absorbed and disappears. It was the clear turning point, is what I'm saying. It's where AMC really started to lose market share. That timing was when AMC started to lose market share. Again, had nothing to do with Renault. It had everything to do with just what was happening at the time, and their losses were the reason Renault could step in. So, at its biggest, AMC had the strength of being small. They were able to quickly adapt, very quickly come out with refreshed designs. So not full designs of a car, but quick changes to a car to keep up with current trend. So they could see a trend building, and within a couple of months, they could have a refreshed version of a car out. The bigger companies could never do that. They were too laden with bureaucracy. It's what happens when you get larger. But that was only a small advantage. AMC had limited numbers of dealerships, they had limited production capacity, and they had limited resources overall. They couldn't increase those things without some sort of cash infusion. And investors were no longer interested in the company as an investment. They were more interested in the company as, why aren't you like General Motors, right? And to kind of bring that around full circle, Tesla is getting very close to that same point. They're getting to the point where investors are no longer going to keep just throwing money at them based on, questionable stock values and stuff. They're going to start demanding real returns, and so they're going to demand that the company actually tangibly be somewhere. AMC was at that point at this time, which again is why Renault stepped in. So shortly after Renault took over, or right there before, somewhere in there, AMC, they discontinued the Rambler. The Rambler had kind of spit fit sales. So they would do really good and then not so great, and then really good and then not too good. The Rambler was a real on and off again vehicle, but it was extremely popular among a very dedicated segment of the population. They loved this car. It was cheap, it was reliable, it was, it had everything that they could want, and it was made here instead of being an import. So you didn't have the stigma of an import. So that was, those things were important, but Renault or AMC decided to cancel that vehicle. Not too long after that, Chrysler bought AMC from Renault. Now it's an interesting bit of timing. Chrysler bought AMC not for AMC. They bought AMC because they had to make that deal in order to get a hold of the Jeep brand. Jeep at the time was really taken off. Had AMC really been able to capitalize on that, they would have soared, and it would have been what kept them afloat for a long time. Just like for Chrysler, the Jeep and the Ram truck brands are what kept that company very afloat in recent times. So again, back to AMC. Had they really capitalized on the Jeep brand, in a short amount of time, they could have just taken off. Renault, interestingly, sold AMC, not apparently understanding that. AMC was in the middle of just finishing development on the Grand Cherokee. Kept thinking Cherokee, but that's not right. It's the bigger one. They were just finishing the final touches on the Grand Cherokee. AMC understood. The people at AMC, they really understood that this was going to be a big deal. Renault, not so much. They didn't think so. They saw AMC as a big loser. They were tired of losing money on it, and they decided to put it up for sale. Chrysler quickly bought it, and the rest is history because AMC quickly disappeared, the Jeep brand soared, and the Grand Cherokee became one of the best-selling vehicles in the country, and there we go. So had Renault, whatever, I'm not French, had they held on to AMC for just a couple more years, AMC would probably still be around, and Renault would probably still own it or have a large share of it. Because once that Grand Cherokee took off, it was a very short amount of time before there was tons of profitability in the Jeep brand. And once there was tons of profitability in that one brand, AMC could have used that to keep their other brands going, specifically their own brand. So we might still have, Ramblers and other stuff. As it is, the AMC company quickly got toned down and dumped. The brand got completely forgotten, and Chrysler ran with the Jeep and other brands that it had purchased, and there you go. That's the history. So the one thing that could have saved the American Motor Company and kept it alive would probably have been had Renault seen the potential of that Grand Cherokee and kept the company for just a couple more years and watched it explode. But that's one small, that's a major one, but it's one point of many that were the demise of AMC. So the American Motor Company, they make great cars. They have a really cool and iconic name about them. They're well remembered by a lot of people. People love the Eagle. I was a personal fan of that. People loved a lot of their vehicles, and sad to see them go. And tearing down their buildings, kind of the final, there they go, they're gone. But honestly, they've been gone for a really long time, since not even the 80s. So that's it. Hopefully that answers the question. It was fun to answer because I had to go and actually do a little research because I didn't know exactly why they failed. So I had to go and do a little digging. And it was just cool to see some of the iconic vehicles that I remember and I still occasionally see at car shows and have a fondness for. I had a friend that drove a Rambler all the time. It was his parents' car. I had another friend with an AMC Eagle, and when I worked at a wrecking yard way back in the day, I would take parts off of those constantly because the people who owned them really, really loved them and did everything they could to keep them going. So there you go. That's what I got. This is Aaron. If you got a question, hit me up. Glad to answer it. Talk to you again soon.